Edie and I go back about 15 years. She has devoted her life to helping others. She has a story unlike any of us have ever heard, let alone encountered on a personal level. I can tell you she's already taken over my home. That's why we're late. And we're blessed to have her with us. Her story is a unique one. She comes from out of a past of extreme brokenness. She's a Holocaust survivor, but that's not her story. And what she's going to share with you this morning is what has happened since being a Holocaust survivor and how God has used her. I can tell you, as somebody that's known her during some of the darkest times of my life, she has put men back together after divorce, after combat, after death, loss, and she does it from out of her heart and out of a willingness to be God's servant. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Mama, Dr. Edie Eger.
Wow. Wow. Wonderful. Wow. Doesn't work. It works. Oh my God. You're precious. Thank you for coming. I feel so honored being here as a mother of 3, a grandmother of 5, and a great-grandma of 3 little boys. Isn't that a miracle? Wonderful. Thank you. I consider that the best revenge to Hitler. Success. We're here. We're worshiping this morning, and we're celebrating that beautiful life that we're here for, to serve others, to rise above the me, and the I, and to commit ourselves to someone other than ourselves. My precious boy here, I call him Mikey Boy, and I committed myself very much to the military because I was liberated May 4th, 1945, by the 71st Infantry in Gunskirchen, Austria. The saints came marching in. And a while ago, I was invited to Fort Carson, Colorado, to speak to 4,000 men and women coming back from Afghanistan on post-traumatic stress disorder. And I saw the sign, "Welcome, Dr. Edith Eva Eger," and I realized that it's the home of the 71st Infantry. Doesn't it? God works miraculously, that I was among the dead, and a young GI found me and gave me M&Ms. And so here I am, because I know that the good Lord wanted me to come here this morning and tell you that there'll never be another you, or you, or you. So I'm showing up for you as you're showing up to the world that needs you so much. And I'm celebrating that God made a male and a female. That is so good for me to be here, to give you that gift that God has given me, to be a mom and a grandmom. And knowing that when we are born, let me take you back a little bit. When we are born, because I'm also a scientist and a researcher, but there is no science without spirituality and without God. Even Einstein was a very spiritual man. I want you to know that. So, but what is happening, that when we come out of the chute, we either get pink marbles or blue marbles. And then we grow up and we don't know how to play with our marbles. So when I was beginning to work with couples, because I'm a former dancer, I went to my supervisor, and I said to him, you know, couples talk to me about three things: sex, money, and in-laws. Maybe not in that order, but I've been married 25 years, and I have 3 children, and I'm not qualified. I don't know anything about sex because I was 17 when I met my husband. So he says, well, I'm going to send you up to Masters and Johnson, and I became a diplomate in sexology. There is such a thing. And what I am going to tell you, that I'm committed very much to do everything in my power for people to recognize that if you were sexually abused, you're far more in prison than I was in Auschwitz, because I knew who was the enemy. I do everything in my power, and I'm counting on you to see to it that our precious America is not going to have anything like that, that three girls and 7 boys. I was lecturing in Italy, and I was robbed on the train going to Italy. So I arrived, and I was told that I am giving a lecture on how to cope with the unexpected and the unanticipated. So I was absolutely just, out of my skin, didn't know where to go from there. But I gave a lecture, probably the best ever, where one of the high-ranking Navy SEALs got up and said, I was raped. I was raped when I was in a camp, and I thought I'm not a man anymore. And that's how I just really am here today to confess. You see, secrets are secrets until you share it. And I'm here today to really unite you as brothers, that you can really open your heart and soul. Because when I came to America penniless, and I didn't have $6 to get off the boat in 1949, I just wanted to be like you. You know, like a Yankee Doodle dandy, I wanted to assimilate. And I never told anyone where I was. I went completely underground for over 20 years. See, what comes out of the body doesn't make you ill. What stays in there does. God built us in such a way. The opposite of depression is expression. And you're here together. This is the best therapy you could ever have, to really recognize that you have the power within, that you have a way to have a brotherhood. And that's my dream, that we're going to hold hand in hand and we're going to form a human family so we can finally survive, on this planet. So I'm here to really tell you that you have a story, right? We all have a story. We all have a story. So going back when you were born, and if your mother took you to the grocery store, little boys get different attention than little girls. I can take the same baby to the grocery store and cover that baby with a pink blanket and cover the baby with a blue blanket. The baby with the pink blanket is picked up much more often than the baby with the blue blanket. So touching, human touch. Human touch is very different from sexual touch, because sexual touch only has one goal, arousal. And so I'm teaching men how not to sexualize your emotionality. You come here in the morning and you love your brother here, and knowing that God only made one of you. Now, I didn't know all that. But there was, in Hungary, March, when the Germans took over. And I found myself in a cattle car. And my mom hugged me, and she said, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to happen. Just remember No one can take away from you what you put here in your own mind. So when I came to America, not speaking a word of English, I committed myself to the God that helped me to survive and do everything I could, but I had so much survivor's guilt and so much survivor's shame that I really didn't know how to forgive myself that I survived. So I went to school and I became addicted to become a high achiever. And when I graduated with honors from the University of Texas in El Paso, I never picked up my graduation because I said to myself, I'm too old. I should have done that 20 years ago. So the enemy is within. I could not really show up because they told me where to show up to pick up my cap and gown, people who graduated with honors. So this is where I'm going to go this morning. I'm going to kind of take you with me to that place called Auschwitz. And how did it happen? I started to study and study and study, and I ended up at William Beaumont Army Medical Center in Fort Bliss, Texas. Anybody is familiar with Fort Bliss, Texas? Now it's the largest one, really, in America. And I began to work and work and work, and pretty soon I had this reputation that I was one of the people actually who coined the word post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm an old-timer. I'm talking about the real early 70s. And I had two paraplegics coming home from Vietnam. One of them was in a fetal position. Why me? Why me? How could this happen to me? Me. Cursing country, God, you name it. Now the other one said to me, you know, Doc, I'm sitting in a wheelchair and I'm so grateful to God that I've gotten a second chance in life. And now I'm looking down and I see my children much closer. I can look at the flowers. And here I am in a white coat. It says Dr. Eger, Department of Psychiatry. And I'm cringing. And I'm cringing, feeling like an imposter, because I couldn't take them further than I have gone myself. And I know that people don't come to me, they're sent to me. I said, please, God, what do I do now? And I decided that God sent these two men to me so I can revisit the places where I've been and relive that experience. And I went back to Auschwitz. And then I arrived with my late husband, who was a guerrilla fighter who I met in a TB hospital after the war. I was on a train, first class, wearing my designer clothes, and God planted 3 elderly Germans who gave me perfume and Kuchen and whatnot. And I said to myself, if I would tell you that in 1945 I was on the top of the train carrying ammunition for the Nazis, would you believe it? See, the most well-known defense mechanism is denial. I'm here to really just tell you that maybe this morning is the day when you will decide how to be reborn, how to be born to be that man that you are now here, because there is a difference between a male and a man. And I know that you are the man. And who is a man in my book? A man who is responsible, who is children don't do what we say, they do what they see. You know, hypocrisy is when I say one thing and I do another. So I'm very committed to the American families. I'm very committed to the men who are the head of the household, the men who are wearing the pants, the men who are the teachers and the providers and the role models. So I'm speaking to those kinds of men, and I'm so happy that Mikey Boy brought me here to be your midwife this morning, that you can give birth to the you that was meant to be. And when I come to Texas, I talk to real people. You know, I love about you, not a phony, you are as you are, and I love that. So I know I'm talking to real men this morning. I'm also talking to the men who are going to schools and empowering the young, because they are the future. They are the ambassadors. You are the ambassadors for what really God has put us here for, to be free. Free from the fears, free from the past hurts and failures, free from being a victim. I have been victimized. I refuse to be a victim. It's not who I am, it's what was done to me. So when I was going to Germany, when I was asked by the Pentagon, by the head chaplains, to go back to Berchtesgaden, I wrote a letter and I said, I don't think I'm able to go back to Germany because it brings back such feelings in me. And my late husband, who was a guerrilla fighter, looked at me and said, if you don't go back to Germany, then Hitler won the war. So now you know who was boss in my family. And when I went to Berchtesgaden, I stopped in Salzburg, and I went to the cathedral, and it had a sign. It had a sign, the way it was bombed out in 1945, and the way it's rebuilt now. And I identified myself with that cathedral, and I went, and that cupola, that beautiful cathedral, and I never felt closer to God than then. And I leaned down, and I went on my knees, thanking God to bring me here. And I went to the hotel. There was an elderly gentleman there, and he asked me, I spoke German quite fluently, hello, Mrs. Eger, you must be waiting for Dr. Eger. And I said, yes. I didn't want to disappoint him that I'm the doctor. My husband is going to follow me. And so that's the way he was programmed, and that was okay with me. But then I realized that I was in Goering's room, and those Persian rugs, and downstairs was Hitler's bunker. You see, there is justice in the world. And I was speaking to 2,000 chaplains, telling them that there is justice in the world, that I'm here today because it was about spirituality, and I was the keynote speaker. So never give up hope. There is hope in hopelessness. And so I'm going to tell you, when I arrived in Auschwitz, and I have the literature from the Red Cross, I arrived in Auschwitz May 22nd, 1944, and there was chaos. There was a sign, Arbeit macht frei, work makes you free, total chaos. My father is separated. My sister Magda and my mother and I were coming forth, and I never forget the day when I met the angel of death called Dr. Mengele. I had another sister, Clara. Clara was a child prodigy in violin. And when she was in Budapest and she was already taken to a camp, her Christian professor smuggled her out and hid her until the end of the war. I was fortunate enough to be the keynote speaker in New Zealand in 1985, thanking the righteous Christian people who saved lives and who committed themselves and saved more and more and more and more lives because that was the right thing to do. And so I'm here to honoring you because I know you would be those kinds of people who's going to fight injustice. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about, I lectured at William Jules Baptist College with a woman who is my hero called Corrie ten Boom. I'd like you to read the book called The Hiding Place. I want you to really read that book because she was hiding families and ended up in a camp, and her sister died in her arms. And then she met the man who was responsible for her sister's death. And what do you think she did? And this is where I come in too, when I'm going to tell you that revenge gives you satisfaction. I grant you that. But forgiveness will give you the utmost spiritual freedom. I never forget one day that a young man came to my office. He was 14, and he told me that he's a boot boy. I didn't know what a boot boy was. He wore a pair of boots and a brown shirt, and then he put his elbow on my desk and he said, "Hey, Doc, it's time for America to be white again. And I'm going to kill all the Jews, using the N-word, all the Chinkos, all the Mexicans." What do you think I did? If I would have reacted, when you react, you don't think. I teach you how to respond. If I would have reacted, I would have told him, "You snapper, who do you think you're talking to? I saw my mother going to the gas chamber." But I knew that people are sent to me. I said, "God, what do I do now?" And God said, "Find the bigot in you." I said, "It's impossible. You know, I work so hard. I commit myself to others. It didn't do me any good." God wanted me to find that part in me that is judgmental, that is bigoted. And God sent me that young boy where I knew that my job is to create a climate, an atmosphere where that boy can feel any feelings without the fear of being judged. I can kill you with my eyes, and I can love you with my eyes. See? I can completely get you when I love you and look at you. Try it, try it, try it. So it's no longer me versus you. Now it's you and me. And that's all it took. God has given me the strength to look at that young boy whose parents were yonder. I don't know, the mother was a prostitute. And he came, and God sent him my way to be my teacher. And I looked at him as lovingly as I could, and I said 3 words, "Tell me more." and how can I love you more? And we began to work. Because that poor boy didn't realize that he gave up all his freedom because somebody gave him a shirt and a boots, and now he knows how to kick into somebody else that gives him a little power now. So you are those ambassadors. You are the ones who go, and you are the ones who come from love, not from fear, not from fear. So you may want to know what happened when I arrived in Auschwitz. My mom was facing Dr. Mengele and he told my mother to go this way. It's called the finger game, left and right. This way meant the gas chamber. And I followed my mom. That's why I pay so much attention to eye contact. So take your temperature several times a day and ask yourself, do I want to feel soft and warm or cold and stiff? Doctors do that, they take the vital sign. Do it with yourself several times a day, rather than sticking things in your mouth. Because when we babies, we always find all gratification through the mouth region. See, you don't have to smoke and drink and nothing like that, because we have God. So, this is where I am now. See, I'm going back and forth and back and forth. It's very hard to follow me. You see, you are very much of a straight person. When you go home and your wife says to you, my sweetheart, I would like to talk to you about this and that, and you say, what do you want? And she says, I don't want anything, honey, I just want to, but you see, you are the fix-it man. You want to fix things. I give you the problem, you give me the solution. And if I don't do what you tell me, then you say, well, then why do you ask me? Rather than tell me more, how can I love you more? That's what you're going to do tonight when you go home. Yes? Because questions can come across as interrogation. If you want closeness, don't ask questions. Don't ask, how are you? Fine? Sometimes couples come home, how are you? Fine. What do you want to do tonight? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. I just want to please you. I just want to please, social noises. I like statements. I feel, I think, I would like, I'm willing. I feel tired. I am needing to take a shower. I would like to have lobster thermidor with filet mignon for dinner, and I'm willing to have hamburgers. Willingness, the willingness is so important, because if you're not willing to compromise, don't get married. Please don't get married unless you're able to have conflict resolution, unless you're able to agree to disagree, unless your children don't go to the bedroom to fight. Let your children know that mom and dad may not agree on the same thing. They can fight and they can make up, because God gave us both. That there is no summer without winter, there is no love without hate. It's how to synthesize and take those both sides that God has given us. I know pretty soon the trees are going to be barren, and then something has to die in order to live. And the springtime comes to little beautiful ways, that the new beginnings. And this is really what happens. I know that God asked me to come here this morning to tell you that my parents had to die so I can be here with you. And telling you what happens when good people do bad things. So when I followed my mom, Dr. Mengele looked at me and said, you're going to see your mother very soon. She's just going to take a shower. The very man who annihilated my family grabbed me and threw me on the other side. Was my life in Dr. Mengele's hand. I think God had a plan for me to be here with you today. And I'm completely surrendering to that. I don't say why me, I say what now. I was telling Mikey boy yesterday that I was one of the wealthiest women in Czechoslovakia because my late husband inherited his grandfather's business that was in Czechoslovakia for hundreds of years. But when the communists took over, they confiscated my husband's business. And since my late husband was a guerrilla fighter, he fought them, so they showed him how, and they threw him in jail. Again, I don't say, why me? I'm thinking, now what do I do? So I packed up. I went to the jail. See, survivors are quick decision makers. I don't have time to contemplate on my navel, why me, why me? I don't have time. What do I do now? I want to be a doer, you know. So I go to the jail, I take out my big diamond ring, I give it to the warden. I took this and I put it in my little girl's diaper, Marianne, who was 1.5 years old, and we fled overnight, and that's how I came to America penniless. That the Red Cross gave me $6 to get off the boat, and I repaid it by contributing 2,000 clinical hours to the Red Cross to repay the $6. I never took anything, ever, from anyone. I am more of a Puritan than any Puritan put together. So now when I tell my story, I become pretty emotional because emotion is good, you know, it's energy, and motion is emotion. So I like a man who can shed a tear. I like a man who can feel the feelings. That doesn't make you less of a man at all. So Dr. Mengele threw me on the other side, which meant life. And where they put the women was called Birkenau. So I went to the inmate, one of the inmates, who actually took my earrings and just tore it down. I was bleeding. It's called displaced aggression. When they were there much sooner than we were, Hungary is part of the final solution of Eichmann. When 15 people got together, very highly educated, and at the end of the day, they decided that they're going to have this scientific, systematic annihilation of a group of people. So here I go. I asked her, when will I see my mother? And she pointed at the chimney, fire coming out of the chimney. And she said, your parents are burning there. You better talk about them in past tense. Your mother is burning there. Your father is burning there. So the question I ask you, how do you find from within when nothing comes from without? The more you depend on someone to make you happy, you're never going to be happy. And this is what I love about Jesus, who said, love thy neighbor as thyself. He didn't say love thy neighbor better than yourself. You can't give what you don't have. You can't give from an empty basket. He was so wise that self-love is self-care. It's not narcissistic. Selfish people don't like themselves, I tell you. So love yourself. Be a good mommy to yourself. Because God gave us temptations. You know why? So you can practice the freedom of choice. You know, the booze is just sitting there. It's up to me whether I'm going to reach for it or not. Children blame, adults problem solve. So you want to be a baby or a big boy? Because that baby is going to be there all your life. You know, the one who has a little voice, just this time, nobody's going to find out. Come on, honey, let's go cheat a little bit. It's going to be there all your life. God gave us that temptation, and it's going to be with me all my life. Yesterday, I had the best filet mignon you can ever have. I love the meat in Texas. I love the meat in Texas. Oh, where did I have the filet mignon last night? There you go. So, you see I'm going back and forth, back and forth. See, men are linear, women are circular because we get periods. So, that's why God made us. Vive la différence, yes. So, don't try to change that other person or be angry until the other person is going to change. And that's what we do a lot of the times. I'm going to be angry long enough, but guess who is suffering? When I'm angry at you, you don't suffer. I do. I'm very selective who's going to get my anger. Be very careful. And when you're angry, you give your power away to someone else. You allow someone else to take residence in your body. And this is all therapy. All therapy is grief work. Not what happened, but what didn't happen. And that's why I asked 2 questions. And one is, when did your childhood end? If you had an alcoholic father, and daddy was maybe somewhere, then you became mother's little surrogate husband, that you became the little man of the house, that you became, and you liked it, because you took the old ladies across the street and all the kind of, and you got a lot of kudos about it. But then again, you grow up and say, I gave up my boyhood just to be plain silly. And that's the work I do, that we go back and revisit the places where you've been, and then you relive that experience. So you see, it is very, very important for you to come into a group like this and acknowledge that Jesus is so brilliantly telling us, love thy neighbor as thyself. He also was so brilliant that he could speak the language of people. I met a Hungarian man this morning. Where are you, Andrew? There you are. And we started to speak Hungarian. Now, if I would speak to you brilliantly in Hungarian, I don't think we would get too far today. See, I got to learn how to speak your language. And Jesus was so brilliantly knowing how to speak the language of people. Parables, whatever it took. Because you never treat a person as they are. I treat them as if they were what they are capable of becoming, and then they rise to the occasion. You treat a bum as a bum, they're going to become worse. You treat them as God's precious little one-of-a-kind diamond in a rough, and they rise to the occasion. Nobody grows on criticism. There is no such thing as constructive criticism. And the way we mothers do that, I come to you and say, you know, you're such a handsome boy, but you're a little fat and a little pimply. Anytime you say but, you cancel everything you said before the but. Because what did you hear now? But I'm fat, but I'm pimply, you see. See, I had 2 beautiful sisters, and my parents wanted a son, and I came along, and I never felt that I really belong to that family. But I know that God put me into that family so I could be lonely, that I could be the person who developed the inner resources that I needed later on. Clara was the superstar. She played the Mendelssohn violin concerto when she was 5 years old. Very hard act to follow. My sister Magda was the sexy one. She's alive and well. She's 91. I think she's 92. I don't know why 1 year makes the difference. Hungarian women are, you know. She is like Zsa Zsa Gabor. And so, well, I spent a lot of time alone, and my mother took me to a ballet school, and I had a very spiritual ballet master who said to me that God built you in such a magnificent way that all the power has to come from inside out. All your ecstasy has to come from inside out. But I didn't know what he was talking about. I remember that Mom told me when I was 10 years old, I was cross-eyed. And being different, of course, meant inferior. My sisters blindfolded me when they took me for a walk because they didn't want anyone to see how ugly their sister was. On the top of that, my mom told me, I'm so glad that you have brains because you have no looks. You know, those messages that you carry with you even today, those tapes, well, you can rewrite your script. I want you to know that you can give you now what you didn't get then, rather than being stuck in the past blaming somebody. Amen, that's right. So the other thing that I may want to tell you about Jesus that I believe is the best and the best and the best role model for us all, regardless of denomination. I think he said, when he said, turn the other cheek, I think he said, go back. He didn't say, go back and do the same thing over and over and over again and expect different results. He said, look at the same thing from a different perspective. Because if I turn my cheek, I look at things. I'm giving you the different perspective today. I'm giving you the opportunity that God has given me to be in that place, in that camp, and find God in the darkness. So very quickly, because I know you're hungry and I know I'm very limited with time, so how much time do I have? Can I talk? Okay. So, okay. So here I go. So let me take you back again. When I was told that my parents were burning there, my sister and I hugged each other and said, the spirit never dies. Isn't that amazing? And I know that the spirit never dies. And I know that my parents' spirit is here with me, telling you my truth, because I can only speak for myself. By the way, when I went back to Auschwitz, I asked my sister, I said, we lost our whole family. I never went to a funeral. I want to go back to Auschwitz and honor my mother. But he told me in a carol car that no one can take away from you what you put in your mind. I have to go my mother and honor my mother. And my sister told me I'm an idiot. She told me I'm a masochist. So you see, when we went through the same experience, entirely different responses. I needed to go back to that lion's den and look at the lion in the face and reclaim my innocence and assign the shame and guilt to the perpetrator, and then finally forgive myself that I survived. Self-forgiveness, I ask you to please do that, because God forgave you a long time ago, whatever you did. You just say, it must have been for good reason, because you learn from it. You're not there anymore. You don't live in the past anymore, because I can only touch you now. And that's what keeps me young. I live in the present. So the concentration camp that you put yourself into is when you say something like, if only. You know, if only I wouldn't have been born to this family, if only I wouldn't have married that woman, if only, if only, if only. You're going back in the past, and that means you're not spending any time in the present. Or you say, I won't be happy until. I won't be happy until I win the lottery. I won't be happy until. So pay attention what you're paying attention to, because any behavior you pay attention to, you reinforce the very behavior. So here you are. Oh, there's a little boy there. Hi, come here. Come on, come. Come, Grandma has a story to tell. Come on, honey. Yes, come help me. Thank you. Isn't it God beautiful? Wow. Look at that charisma. Look at that. The charisma is called now the EQ, the emotional IQ. You see, you can have all the IQs in the world, and you can be an absent-minded professor, don't know how to find a can of beans in a grocery store, you know? You know one of those guys? So, yeah, the EQ. And you are the future, honey. You are the ambassador for peace and goodwill. I'm so happy that you came here. Daddy, thank you so much for bringing your son, because I hand the torch to you. Thank you so much, because see, you're going to do everything in your power. You're going to do everything in your power, so your children and grandchildren will never experience what I'm about to tell you. So here we were in our nakedness, completely shaven. My sister Magda came to me, and she had her beautiful blonde locks. When she left the house, you know, she didn't turn around any other way except, God forbid, her locks wouldn't move. Just give you an idea about Magda. So she asked me, how do I look? And I had a dilemma, as you have a choice now, whether you pay attention to what you lost or concentrate on what is here and what is left. And I realized that I became Magda's mirror. And I knew that my sister was very vain. I said to Magda, wow, you know, you have such beautiful eyes, and I didn't see it when you had your hair all over the place. So pick something. There is always something good in everything. And that's what I remembered. And my sister, when I see her, she lives in Baltimore, Maryland, and she's a life master in bridge, and sometimes she plays bridge with Omar Sharif. He's not as handsome as he was in Dr. Zhivago. That's what she tells me. So very quickly, we got this gray uniform with a number. I have that number in my drawer somewhere. And Dr. Mengele came and wanted to be entertained. Now, my friends who knew that I was the one who entertained when the president came in my Hungarian little costume and I did the high kick and all that, volunteered me, and I ended up dancing for Dr. Mengele. Now, I want you to know that I didn't know who he was, but I began to pray. Not for me, for him. And I pretended. that the music was Tchaikovsky, and I was dancing the Romeo and Juliet at the Budapest Opera House. And as I was praying for him, I heard him saying who to take to the gas chamber, and how powerful the prayer was for me, that I realized that I'm not alone. He gave me a little bread when I ended up dancing that I shared with the girls. You see, we had order. I was on the top. We had 1 foot, one head, 1 foot, one head. And if somebody wanted to turn around, it was 1, 2, 3. All 6 of us had to turn around. Cooperation was the name of the game, not competition, not domination. And that's the way we are today here, that I can be I and you can be you, but together we're going to be much stronger than me alone or you alone. Cooperation, not competition, not domination. And I shared the bread with all the girls. Things were very hard in Auschwitz because we didn't know what's going to happen next. And that's the difference between stress and distress. You know, we are built in such a way that anything stressful that comes to us, we have 2 automatic responses, either fight or flee. But in Auschwitz, I couldn't fight. I would have been shot. And many were shot right in front of me. I couldn't flee because if I would have touched the barbed wires, I would have been electrocuted. And today I teach people how to flow, how to stay in a situation, because Truman says if it's hot in a kitchen, get out. I say stay in a kitchen and learn how to deal with the steam. Because people get married, more than 50% gets a divorce. Why? Because they have faulty expectations. Falling in love is a chemical high that lonely people get from chocolate. I was just talking about it last night at the dinner table. Falling in love is infatuation and sexual desire. It can lead to a loving relationship. I think a marriage is for adults and not for children. So you marry your best friend, you marry someone who is your soulmate, you marry someone who's going to pull the wagon together with you. But I can go on with that for days. So let me just take you back again. And so when I work with Vietnam veterans, they have tremendous survivor's guilt because he tells me if I would have been here instead of there, then my body wouldn't have died. And I don't know if any of you are Vietnam vets or not. I guess you're too young for that, yes? You're too young for the Vietnam War or the Korean War. You're too young for that. So, we never knew when we went to the shower whether gas is going to come out or water is going to come out. And that's the difference between stress and distress. Stress is good, it's the salt of life. Distress is when you don't know what's going to happen next. Stress is good. It's where I am and where I am striving to be. I have yet to arrive. I'm climbing that mountain, and that is what life is all about. We climb and we sleep, and we climb and we sleep, and I never stop climbing. So, Auschwitz was very, very, very important for me to kind of learn how to pray to God, and I decided that even though I was told every day I'm never going to get out of here alive, I began to pray not for me, but for the guards. And I decided that they were the prisoners, not me. I was able to somehow remove myself and witness myself going through an experience, because they could beat me, and they did. They could torture me, but they could never, ever murder my spirit that I bring you this morning. That, stubbornness, that you're not going to make me. And I'm here to tell you about it. I also love Bob Hope, because humor was a wonderful tranquilizer. If you laugh from a belly, like 20 minutes a day, you're never gonna have insomnia. So come here and laugh your heart out from your belly. I stood in line to get my tattoo. I didn't get it. I was told I'm going to the gas chamber because they don't want to waste the ink on me. But on the way to the gas chamber, there was all kinds of chaos. And then Magda was in one pile, I was in the other pile, and I knew we had to be together. Again, not why me, but what now. I did some cartwheels so she can come with me, and we were on the top of the train carrying ammunition for the Nazis, thinking that the British won't bomb, but they bombed anyway. About 7 girls died around me. The train stopped, and I jumped down, and I ran into the forest, and my sister wasn't there in the middle of the bombing. I ran back to get my sister so we could be together. So as your wonderful GIs came from one end and the Russians from the other, we were evacuated, going from one place to another. One time we were put in a German village, and we were told if you leave the premises, we're going to be shot right away. But my sister told me, if you don't get some food, I'm going to die. So I looked outside and didn't pay any attention to the rules, and I saw some carrots in the next garden in this little German village, and I jumped down. I was a gymnast, and I stole the carrots, and when I climbed up, I met the guard with a gun. And here I was again, and there was that eye contact, and I just began to pray and pray and pray, not for me, because I heard the clicking. I never held a gun in my life. And about 3 times I heard that clicking, and my prayers were so strong that at one point he turned the gun around and pushed me inside. I do have a back problem, and that's why I'm kind of standing up and sitting down. But I had my life, you see. He didn't listen to Hitler. And he came back the next day. And next morning wanted to know who dared to break the rules. So I crawled to him. This is April 1945, when the German people are starving. He gave me a little loaf of bread. You know what a loaf of bread meant when people were killing for crumbs? And he said to me, you must have been hungry to do what you did. Isn't that amazing that I found a diamond in that garbage pile? I wish I could meet this man today. Wouldn't it be wonderful to thank him? Things got worse after that. I ended up in a place called Mauthausen in Austria. And we were walking up the steps, and all I saw was blood and scars, and I knew I'm going to die here. And I said, God, I never really saw a man, because I had 2 sisters. I never saw my father undressing. Before I die, I want to see a man. And I'm just sharing that with you this morning. I never shared it with anyone. I went outside and I looked at corpses, how a man looks like. But I didn't know what to do with it, or what do you do with it, nothing, because there was no education such in my time. But then again, we stood before the crematoria, and then God again had another plan, and I survived today what is called the Death March. And I revisited that place between Mauthausen and Gunskirchen, Austria. When you stopped, you were shot right away. And I'm praying to God because I'm slowing down, and I don't think I can go anymore. And I asked, please, God, I don't think I can walk anymore. And when the friends that I shared the bread with saw me slowing down, just picturing all that in my mind. They came and they formed a chair with their arms, and they carried me so I wouldn't die. This is what you do. This is what you do. You offer your hands to carry people from victimization to empowerment, from darkness to light, from prison to freedom. And the biggest prison is in your own mind. And I tell you that the key is right in your pocket. And when we arrived in Gunskirchen, I want you to see a movie called The Sound of Music, because it was in Gunskirchen, Austria, when I saw cannibalism. And when people were eating other people's flesh, I said, please, God, help me. I will not touch human flesh. And even then, God showed me that I had grass to eat. When you see The Sound of Music, you'll see that grass as she sings. That's where I was. And I remember choosing one blade of grass over against the other. Even then, I had a choice. When people say, I can't, just take the apostrophe and take the T, I can. Why? Because I think I can. Like choo-choo train. That's the whole cognitive psychology is based upon. That first you think and then you feel, not the other way around. And the Bible says it too, that I think, therefore I am. So then you came, and I was liberated, and I was thrown like with any others there. We didn't know who was alive and who was dead, but what I did, I observed that people would go through the gate, and then pretty soon they would come back. So I began to work with battered wives, and I built transitional living centers, because the battered wife still believed that somehow the answer is going to come from a man. There is a difference between a dominating man and a domineering man. I want a dominating man. Nice guys can be very boring, you know? Yeah, I can make a doormat out of you, but I like a dominating man. I like a man who is not going to ask me, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? You know, I want someone who's going to say, you know, I'm going to have a good time with you, and we're going to go dancing. And by the way, I'm available for Saturday night. So, anyway, guys. Freedom is so important, but when you're free, you can't pass the buck. You gotta take responsibility for your life. You can not just blame anyone anymore. So what you see is that is so beautiful for me to appreciate life, because many times we don't appreciate what we have until we lose it. Even today, I have a hard time throwing away a piece of bread because I eat up everything on my plate. But I'm really wanting to bless the wonderful God that brought me here today via this precious boy. Come here, Angel. And for you too, thank you. Thank you. Yes. And I'm gonna call you. Where is Chad? Chad, I'm gonna call you a gentle giant. You are a gentle giant, and all of you are gentle giants. All of you are gentle giants. So I kind of want to hopefully empower you and let you know that everything in life happening for our greater good, that out of darkness comes light, and out of prison comes freedom. And just remember that God only made one of you. When you leave this room, no one can replace you. So I want to thank you for having me. You're a wonderful, beautiful Christian man who can be Christ-like, that you can really guide people from victimization to empowerment, from darkness to light. God love you. Thank you.
Thanks for your support of Wingmen Ministries. We would love to hear your comments about today's show and help you get connected with other men in your local area. To keep up to date on upcoming events, element groups, and speakers, please visit our website at wingmen.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for our email list.